initially, the set that I had seen earlier on did not have the writing on the back of it. So it showed the removal. And these are Border Patrolmen. The recent discovery of the original photos with the writing on it said that these men had organized and participated in what was called a lay-down strike. That they were going to take off all their clothes except their underwear, and they're going to lay down on the beds and the floors where they were sleeping and not cooperate. So what looked like, it was still very brutal because they were beaten, but this was a part of their resistance, which we didn't know. So it really changed the meaning of what was happening here. So my father was dragged to the train, and in 1977, after my father passed away, my mother and I were cleaning out his desk, and at the bottom drawer in the back of the desk, I found a packet of letters wrapped in brown twine. And my mother was standing with me, and when I pulled them out, she kind of dropped to her knees, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know that Daddy had saved my letters." And you can see how the letters were censored. They wrote in Japanese. They could write in English because they were literate in English, but they wrote in Japanese, hoping that somehow there would be less censorship, but there was massive censorship. But the interesting thing was, I handed those letters, the packet of letters, to my mother with her handwriting on it, and she looked at them and she handed them right back to me, and then she said, "Somewhere around here are the letters that he wrote to me." And then she walked out of the room. So I realized that she didn't want to reopen that door, but she wanted to make sure that I did. Because the next morning, the letters that he had written to her were in a box, along with haiku, my father's haiku journals, and her diary. And I've done that many times again. So I carried that box around for 20 years because I can't read Japanese. It's one of the losses of our effort to reintegrate after the war, to be as Americanized as possible. My parents stopped speaking Japanese to us, and so I couldn't read these letters, and I felt like somehow my own trauma around the camp experience, I wasn't ready to uncover what these letters said. So it took me 20 years before I could sit down and have a translator work with me for 5 years to translate 182 of these letters that they published. So the first one was in my mother's handwriting. This is in my father's handwriting. And in this packet, this box with the letters in it, there were 4 of these cloth letters. And I asked my mother, what are these? And she said that my dad would shred his bed sheets to avoid the censor. He would write the letter and then roll it up and put it inside his belt lining and then sew the pants back up and write to her and say, the pants are too big, please repair the waist for me. And in her diary, it said, today I discovered, I wondered why he wanted me to fix his pants, and she noticed it was hand-stitched waistband, and then she uncovered the letter. And it it set up an opportunity for them to exchange letters back and forth, hidden inside of clothing. So when I was doing the translation, I realized that any reference to pants was some kind of indication that there was a hidden letter. So inside the pockets, instead of the pockets, he stitched in these cloth letters. And I only found 4 of them, but apparently there were several. This is just a sample of the diary my mother kept. She wrote in English and Japanese. Some of the diaries were like this small.
I don't really
These are my
understand
father's,
message.
No, you won't. Just turn it down.
hiking
It'll still be
This is my next book. I've had all the haiku poetry translated,
It paused it.
and hoping next year it'll be published. This is one of his poems, and this is a photograph from Bismarck, North Dakota.
Wow.
So he wrote, of course, the poems were in Japanese, and I had a very renowned poet, actually a young woman, a young Jewish woman, who was raised in Japan, who teaches haiku in Tokyo, helped me translate. She did these beautiful translations. So the war is over, but I'm still in the Snow Country prison. And just last year, there are a group of us, descendants of Bismarck, North Dakota, who built a $1.6 million memorial at the site of the prison camp, which is on the United Tribes Technical College. We have a wonderful relationship with the native people in that are part of that college, and they gave us a piece of land. I got choked up again and thought, of all people to give land, that's another PowerPoint slideshow. We made this amazing memorial, and we listed the names of all the people who were incarcerated there, because their names have been suppressed. The people who were sent to the federal prisons, their story has been suppressed and was incredibly challenged to find any records. Finally, in 1946, my father was sent to Crystal City, Texas, which was also a Department of Justice, a federal internment camp. And it was the family reunification prison camp. My mother, my brother, and I were shipped from Tule Lake to Crystal City, and we were reunited in 1946 to be deported to Japan. So the families were gathered there to be deported. I am a psychotherapist. I specialize in doing treatment of trauma for children. And when I'm teaching students, I tell them, when you're working with a child who's had trauma, look into their eyes and you will see a story. There was a German photographer in Crystal City, Texas, who set up a studio and had a camera and took family photos before the deportation date. So thanks again to Attorney Wayne Collins, who literally fought individual cases of those who had to, my parents were forced to renounce their American citizenship. So now we're talking about the end of birthright citizenship as contemporary as that issue is today. That was the only way an American citizen could be deported to Japan. They had to give up their U.S. citizenship. But thanks to this attorney, Wayne Collins, whose son lives in Berkeley, and there is a book about Wayne Collins. He fought in court and determined, proved to the courts that renunciation of U.S. citizenship was forced and under duress and therefore null and void. And so thankfully my parents escaped the deportation, but not everybody did. There were people, families that were deported to Japan, some who had never been to Japan, who didn't speak the language, and had a horrible time in a war-torn country where they weren't wanted because people were struggling